All right. So I wanted to go ahead and cover some of this Breakfast Club situation. I thought that it was a real good backdrop to share a few messages. Now, this is going to be part one of this message. And the reason that we're breaking it up is because we have decided that, we're not going to drop the complete message, which is going to be beyond 10 minutes exclusively on certain platforms. Okay. Um, we think that, a few different other platforms, we won't mention them, but they are more likely to give us a little more traffic on the messages that we share. All right. And so, because that's what it's about, and we know that, all of these apps out here are scripting it up or whatever, but, man, we are able to, uh, reach a little further on other platforms versus others. Okay. Because we know that, a lot of those folks over there, they're catching everything that we drop. All right. But a lot of times they catch it for information so that they can, try to be more clever in what they do or whatever they're doing over there. However, the people out here who can use these messages to be a little better, um, not so much. Okay, and you know, y'all know that the truth is not as popular. However, like I said, man, we feel like we get it, a little better in various different other places. All right, and so just wanted to knock that out real quick. But this one, I wanted to speak about the police conversation that they were having. All right, and y'all, surprisingly, even though I thought again that woman, she was very unprofessional. She was a terrible look for women, and she was a terrible representation for clearly the party that she is defending. Okay, um, I I agree with their opposition somewhat to his stance on things, which is police in the so-called black community, uh, the way that they are. Okay, today. All right, when we talk about policy or whatever. Okay, and so just getting into that. And first, I want to also say, man, they talk a lot. They on the Breakfast Club, and they're talking about January 7th, and let's talk about what really matter to so-called black folks. All right, you know what I'm saying? Because black people don't really care about that. The so-called black community is not concerned about them using that situation. All right, as kind of like an angle, all right, to sell to you here in the black community why you should, vote for them. And in my opinion, man, you got so-called black people out here running on that is extra goofy to me. You know what I'm saying? All right, and I think that they do a lot of that as filler to prevent getting down to the get down when it talks about what does these administrations mean to enforce so-called black people. Okay, and I've told y'all before as well, a while ago, that you can't sit around believing that somebody is going to get on stage and say, I'm going to do this for so-called black people. All right, you see somebody say that, you should know that it's a game being played. All right, you got to pay attention to what they're putting out here that you can see, all right, with your thinking that so-called black people can kind of like utilize and put in the game and take to a higher plane. All right, some of the policies and things like that that they are doing. Okay, and that's just really how it's played. Other groups are not looking for that. Okay, they are paying attention to what they're talking about so that they can exploit some of them. Okay, because we got a lot of these other groups out here just as lost for real. All right, but y'all kind of get what I'm talking about. But speaking about the officer issue, listen, what he said, I don't totally agree with it. You know what I'm saying? What he was talking about, the Byron dude. Now, he did real well on the show, okay, but I don't agree with him totally on this matter, okay, because one would have to ask, why is that not extended to people like nurses, okay, who also live in fear that they might lose their license in certain circumstances in these hospitals, nursing homes, and senior living places and stuff like that. All right. I believe the reason is because the officer in the so-called black community was part of the civil rights package. All right. It was a part of ensuring that the officer and police were going to work, I guess you would say, uniformly, seamlessly, or whatever, with the chaotic culture, all right, that was said to be promoted in the so-called black community. All right. That's why that whole policy that they were talking about, it was implemented in like 1967, right after the civil rights. Okay. And the reason why is because a lot of what government was going to be doing, all right, out here when it came to so-called black people, okay, was going to be a lot of, shady things that was going to ensure that they were going to get that flip, okay, that they did get, okay. And so, man, in my opinion, man, that's just the truth of the matter. And then after that, okay, what he said is, okay, unless they act outside, okay, violate your constitutional rights, okay. Well, once we get past that, then we got to worry about what are the repercussions, okay, for that officer. And when we look at how this society is set up, even if he was somebody to, okay, be labeled a felon or whatever, okay, the position that, his people are in, okay, if he's outside of the so-called black community, he's a part of these other groups, okay, is going to give him a much better chance of still being better off even after the fact, okay, when he is kind of like held accountable for, acting outside of somebody's constitutional rights or whatever, okay. And see, so that's something else that you got to take into account, because, and you got to look at what the investment is going to be, all right, for them to prove, all right, that he did versus that he didn't act outside of, constitutional rights, okay, based on various different circumstances. Because when you get to looking into that, that's where it starts to get shady, all right. You got to worry about who's in charge and who is actually enforcing all of these rules, and who they got in mind and who they don't. All right. That's another thing that you kind of like have to get down to and consider. And when you take those things into consideration, it's still a shady game. All right. While this dude Byron is kind of like holding his ground on what he was talking about. You did. Okay. And I think that he had mentioned in there that, when he was young and the police got called, they came. But see, the thing is, man, you got to talk about why it became a situation like that, where you even had to call the police and you needed them to be on their way like that. Where before you were able to govern yourself and you didn't have to have them involved. Okay? And so, man, that's kind of like what I would say about that. But all of that being said, you know what I'm saying? A lot of this situation is like this today because of so-called black people and the decisions that we made. Okay? It's not a time really to turn around and be a victim. And I want to say that when I make this information. All right? It's a time to reflect on what went wrong, okay, and what we can actually do to go right. All right? And so that's what I would want to say about part one of this. And I'll follow up about part 2, 300.